The movie begins in 1998 in the state of California, and we learn that the story of this movie is based on true events that happened to a person named Jeffrey. The events of the movie start with Jeffrey breaking through the roof of a McDonald's restaurant in order to rob it. After some time, two employees and the restaurant supervisor enter, and suddenly Jeffrey appears in front of them, wearing a mask and holding a weapon. At that moment, the employees are terrified and think he will hurt them, but Jeffrey reassures them and calms them down, telling them to listen to what he says and no one will get hurt. He asks the supervisor for the safe combination and then asks them all to put on jackets and puts them inside the freezer, reassuring them that before he leaves, he will call the police so they can come and get them out. However, the supervisor tells him that he doesn't have a jacket because he forgot it, so Jeffrey gives him his own jacket. After that, he closes the freezer door on them, goes to open the safe, takes all the money, and escapes before the police arrive. At that time, Jeffrey tells us that he was a former soldier in the army, but after being discharged from service, he wasn't able to provide a good life for his family. We go back in time 2 years, specifically to the day of Jeffrey's daughter Becky's birthday. After Becky blows out the candles on the cake, Jeffrey asks her about the gift she wished for, and she tells him she wished for a bicycle. However, Jeffrey gives her an old toy of his from when he was a child, hoping that his daughter would be satisfied with this simple gift, but Becky does not like the gift. Afterwards, Jeffrey goes to his colleague in the army named Steve and tells him that he is unable to find a job to earn money to spend on his home, especially since the skills he acquired in the army are not useful in civilian life. Here, Steve draws Jeffrey's attention to the fact that he possesses the skill of strong observation and focus on details. Later, Jeffrey returns to the McDonald's restaurant and waits with his children outside to drop them off to his ex-wife Tana. He tells her that he knows the past months haven't been easy and knows that he is unable to provide the money they need, but he promises her that what's coming will be better. Nevertheless, Tana does not trust his words and leaves him and walks away. Jeffrey gets upset when he discovers that Becky left the gift in his car and didn't take it. At that moment, he sees a maintenance worker going up to the roof of the restaurant, and here the idea comes to him to rob this restaurant. He enters the restaurant and begins monitoring the place and the employees in it, and within 2 minutes, he memorizes all the details related to the restaurant. Jeffrey keeps asking himself how many restaurants he will need to rob to be able to buy a house and return to his family again. Within 2 years, Jeffrey repeats the same method and breaks into 45 McDonald's branches by going up to the roof of the restaurant, choosing the weakest point in it, and breaking it, then going down to rob the restaurant's safe. In the present time, the media has nicknamed Jeffrey Roofman because he is able to rob restaurants from the roof. The strange thing is that McDonald's employees say the thief was very polite with them, to the point that he gave one of them his jacket to protect them from the cold. We learn that the police were able to reach a composite sketch of his description, even though he was wearing a mask during the robbery, and they were also able to know his height and his athletic body shape. Thanks to these robberies, Jeffrey is now living in a large house with his family, and they are celebrating the birthday of their young daughter Becky. Things have become completely different than before, and Jeffrey is able to give his daughter a bigger and more beautiful cake than the ones he used to bring before, and most importantly, he brought his daughter the bicycle she wished for. However, Jeffrey is shocked when he finds the police arriving at the house wanting to arrest him. Jeffrey tries to escape from them, but while he is running, he falls from a slope, and the police officers arrest him. All of this happens in front of his daughter Becky, who stands there in shock. Afterwards, Jeffrey's trial is shown on television, and Jeffrey is sentenced to prison for 45 years. After a while, Jeffrey speaks with his daughter on the phone and asks her if she is receiving his letters. She tells him that her mother is keeping them until she grows up and reads them then. But Jeffrey tells her that this is not right because he sent these letters for the current time. Becky tells him that they attended a meeting for the families of prisoners, and there they suggested that they forget him completely because he will not return home again, even if he promised them so. Jeffrey is shocked by these words and wants to talk to Tana, but Tana signals to Becky not to do that and asks her to tell Jeffrey that she needs to finish her homework with the help of Gary, her mother's husband. At that moment, Jeffrey is saddened when he realizes that Tana forgot him quickly. Afterwards, Jeffrey grabs a picture of his family and cuts off the part where Tana appears. Here, one of the prisoners tells him to forget them because he will not return to them again. With the passing of time, we see Jeffrey working in a workshop in the prison, and while he is working, he analyzes everything happening around him. Afterwards, he begins planning his escape from prison with new precision. He starts monitoring the wood transport truck that comes every so often, and then he cuts a piece of wood to the size of the truck's body and collects pieces of cloth and sews them onto his prison undergarments. After a few days, the day of escape comes. On this day, he waits for the opportunity when the driver moves away from the truck, takes the wooden board, secures it under the truck, creates a place for himself under the truck, and hides inside it. At that time, the truck leaves the prison gate, and the security officers do not notice that Jeffrey is hiding under the truck. Thus, Jeffrey's plan succeeds, and he is able to escape from prison. After a little time, the truck driver stops to go to the bathroom, and Jeffrey takes the opportunity and exits quietly from under the truck, runs to the forest quickly, and gets rid of the prison clothes. Afterwards, he reaches another road and signals a car to take him to the city. The first thing Jeffrey does is go to his house and see his daughter riding the bicycle and playing with it, but he cannot approach her, so the police won't catch him. At night, he calls his friend Steve and asks him to help him escape out of the country, saying he is thinking of going to Venezuela because it does not allow the extradition of criminals. But Steve tells him that the news of his escape is topping the headlines and the police are looking for him everywhere, and advises him to hide and not contact him again for at least a month. As soon as Jeffrey ends the call, a police patrol arrives at the place, so Jeffrey thinks quickly and enters a toy store and walks among the people as if he were an ordinary customer. Afterwards, he enters the bathroom, opens a hole in the ceiling, and hides inside the ventilation ducts. Jeffrey remains hidden in his place until the store closes. Then he walks over the ceiling quietly and goes down into the manager's room and confirms from the cameras that he is alone in the place. Afterwards, he moves around the store and makes sure he doesn't appear on the cameras, and uses a stick to reach jars containing sweets because he is hungry and wants to eat. But he fails because that spot is close to the camera, so he is forced to take food intended for children and eats it in the manager's office. At that time, he watches the news on television and is upset when the police chief describes him as a dangerous criminal. Afterwards, Jeffrey returns to the ceiling and looks at a picture of his children before sleeping until the next day. On this night, Jeffrey comes down from the ceiling and keeps monitoring the screen that displays the surveillance cameras. Suddenly, he starts searching through the files until he finds the password and is able to stop the camera recording during the night. Thus, he becomes able to move around the place freely without anyone seeing him. By chance, he discovers an empty space behind the children's bicycle section, so he goes to get mattresses and puts them in that place, turning the area into a small bedroom where he sleeps. Jeffrey remains hidden in the toy store for 3 days, while the police are looking for him everywhere. Every night, Jeffrey entertains himself with the toys in the store and is also able to shower in the bathroom. One night, Jeffrey discovers that the store sells baby monitors, so he installs them in different places inside the store and in the office to monitor the employees. At that time, he sees an employee named Lee, who is asking her manager named Mitch for time off from work because she recently got divorced and needs to balance her work hours and her time with her children. But Mitch refuses to give her time off, and at that moment, Jeffrey sympathizes with Lee and decides to help her. He keeps monitoring Mitch until he is able to find out the password for his computer. At night, Jeffrey turns on the computer and enters the operating system and is able to modify Lee's work schedule to help her find time to spend with her children. After a while, Jeffrey notices that the media and the police are no longer interested in his news, which makes him excited to leave the store during the night. He is able to make a modification to the emergency exit lock so he can enter and exit the store whenever he likes without anyone noticing. The next day, he wakes up early, takes a bicycle from the store, and rides it until he reaches a public telephone and calls Steve. At that time, his wife Michelle answers him and tells him that Steve traveled to Afghanistan on a 6-month work contract and won't return until December. Jeffrey leaves him a coded message, so he understands from it that he is still waiting for him. Afterwards, he calls his house and his daughter Becky answers, but Jeffrey is shocked when he hears her voice playing with Gary, her mother's husband. Here Tana suspects the call, so she takes the receiver from her daughter and tells him that she knows it is Jeffrey and threatens him that if he calls again, she will call the police, and tells him that they are already living a new life without him and asks him to do the same. In that moment, Jeffrey breaks down and hangs up the line and is sad. When he returns to the store, he hangs a calendar in the place where he sleeps to count the days until Steve returns. The next day, Jeffrey sees Mitch standing with one of the employees, and they learn that many sweets are missing from the store, and they accuse him of stealing them. At that moment, Lee comes and defends this employee, so Jeffrey feels guilty and at night returns the sweets to their place. The next day, Jeffrey sees Lee giving Mitch an invitation to the church and informing him that she is responsible for a donation drive for a charity party that will be held there, and asks him to donate toys for the children who will attend the party. But Mitch refuses and tells her that the store sells toys, it doesn't distribute them for free. She reminds him of the returned toys that he won't be able to sell and tells him that he could donate them, but Mitch still insists on his opinion, takes the invitation, and throws it in the trash. That night, Jeffrey takes the invitation and keeps it. The next day, he wakes up early and leaves through the emergency exit on his bicycle, carrying a bag full of children's toys, and goes to the church. That time, he leaves the bag at the church door and is about to leave, but one of the churchgoers sees him. Jeffrey tells her that these toys are for donations, so she asks him to come in and put them in their designated place inside the church. Although Jeffrey is hesitant and afraid that someone will recognize him, he has no other choice. In that moment, the woman admires what he is doing and insists that he comes in to attend the party rehearsals with them. He sees Lee singing in the church choir. Afterwards, people in the church offer him food, and they notice that he eats greedily as if he hasn't eaten in years. So he tells them that he hasn't tasted food this beautiful in a long time. Afterwards, Jeffrey introduces himself to the people as John and tells them he is new to the area. At that moment, he gets to know Lee, and she is happy with the donation he made. Here, the church members ask Jeffrey if he has children or family, and he tells them he is separated and has children, but they live in New York. He also tells them that he works for a security agency and that he is on a secret mission and shouldn't talk more than that about the subject. They understand his position and bring him an invitation to a group lunch at a restaurant the next day. That night, while he is brushing his teeth, he feels severe pain, and this is because he was eating a lot of sweets. He decides to go to a dentist, and for that reason, he steals some toys from the store and goes to sell them to pay the dentist's costs. Afterwards, he buys suitable clothes to go to the restaurant, and there Jeffrey is surprised that he is the only man at the gathering and all the women are impressed by him because Jeffrey is very kind to all of them. After lunch, Jeffrey and Lee go out together, and it appears then that there is a mutual attraction between them, and so they agree to go out together the next day. At that time, Lee talks to him about her 2 daughters, and Jeffrey asks her to meet them, and she agrees. Because Lee is not sure her daughters will accept that their mother is in a relationship with someone, Jeffrey suggests that she tells them he is her friend from the church. The next day, Jeffrey goes to Lee's house as they agreed, and there he meets her daughters, Lindsay and Dee, and gives them gifts he took from the store. At that time, Dee is happy and hugs Jeffrey, but Lindsay's reaction is different, and it shows that she does not accept Jeffrey's presence in their lives. Days pass and Jeffrey spends time with Lee and her daughter Dee, but Jeffrey knows that if he stays in one place for a long time, someone will surely recognize him. He suggests to Lee that they go and live together and start a new life in another place, but Lee tells him she can't do that. One night, Jeffrey was showering and suddenly hears someone outside, and it turns out to be Mitch, the store manager. At that time, Jeffrey had left his clothes in the hallway next to the fan to dry. He waits for Mitch to enter the office, goes out, and takes the fan and the hanging clothes. Unfortunately, Mitch comes out of the office and sees him. Jeffrey moves quickly and puts the fan in front of his face, so Mitch doesn't see his features. At that moment, Mitch is afraid of him, runs and hides in his office. Here, Jeffrey runs quickly and activates the back door alarm so Mitch understands that he has already escaped from the store. then returns quickly to his secret place before anyone sees him. As for Mitch, he calls the police and they come to search the whole place, but they are unable to reach the place where Jeffrey is hidden. At that time, they discover that the surveillance cameras were not recording, so Mitch tells them he will change the security system soon. Then the police ask him if anything was stolen from the store, and he tells them that video games worth $100,000 were stolen. The next day, Jeffrey is at Lee's house and watches the news bulletin as they talk about what happened, and he is surprised that Mitch is lying and saying that the thief threatened to kill him. Afterwards, Jeffrey goes with Lee and her daughters, and they have dinner together. At that time, Lee's friends talk about the thief who was showering in the store's bathroom, but Lee tells them that the person who is forced to shower in a toy store bathroom certainly needs sympathy and they shouldn't mock him. The next day, Jeffrey decides to buy a car for Lindsay and teach her how to drive. Even though Lindsay is nervous, Jeffrey helps her until she is able to drive the car. At that moment, they are all happy and joyful, and the seller insists on taking a family photo for them and they agree. Afterwards, the 1st of December comes and Steve returns from Afghanistan and Jeffrey goes to meet him. At that time, Michelle, his wife, puts a wig on him and they take a photo of him so Steve can forge a passport for him under a new name. But Steve informs Jeffrey that he needs $50,000 to finish the rest of his travel procedures out of the country, so Jeffrey tells him that he has planned for something like this. Late that night, Jeffrey goes to a gun store and is able to enter in the same way from the roof, but he discovers that he entered the store next to it and has no solution other than breaking the wall. At that moment, the alarm system goes off, so Jeffrey moves quickly and steals a pistol and a bulletproof vest. When he tries to leave the second store, he can't open the door, so he grabs a large statue to break the door and escapes before the police arrive. The next day, Jeffrey hears Mitch talking to the employees about the work plan during the Christmas holidays. At that time, Mitch introduces them to the new work schedule, which includes extra work hours for all employees. Here we know that Jeffrey intends to rob the store, and for that reason, he modifies the work schedule so that Lee is not present on the day of the robbery. The next day, Jeffrey buys a large Christmas tree and Christmas decorations and goes to pick up Lindsay from school and lets her drive the car. Lee is impressed when she returns home and finds it decorated with Christmas decorations, and at that moment, she thanks Jeffrey for what he did. Afterwards, they all hug each other and are happy and go to the church together. As soon as Jeffrey sees Lee singing, he is moved and cannot hold back his tears, and it appears then that he doesn't want to be away from her. The next day, Jeffrey begins executing the robbery plan. He puts on the mask and comes out of his place holding the gun and forces Mitch to tie up all the employees. At that moment, the security guard tries to grab his weapon, so Jeffrey hits him hard and knocks him to the ground. Afterwards, he makes Mitch open the safe and disable the ink device on the money. The device explodes in Mitch's face, so Jeffrey takes the bag of money and leaves. But as he is going out, the employee calls out to him and tells him that the security guard is bleeding and needs an ambulance, so Jeffrey is forced to call emergency services before he leaves. Suddenly, Lee arrives and sees him, so she screams and runs away from him. As for Jeffrey, he escapes quickly through the back door. Afterwards, the police arrive at the place and discover the spot where Jeffrey was hiding inside the store. Later, Lee is interrogated, and she tells the police that she couldn't see the thief's face because he was wearing a mask on his face, and it is clear that Lee is lying and that she was able to recognize Jeffrey. At that time, Jeffrey hands the money over to Steve and takes his new identity papers and travel ticket from him. At that moment, Steve draws his attention to the fact that he must erase any evidence or trace of him in the city. Jeffrey informs him that he had gone to a dental clinic and reassures him that he will handle it and find a solution to the matter. Steve asks him about the news of the toy store robbery that he saw on television, but Jeffrey tells him he knows nothing about it. Afterwards, Jeffrey breaks into the dentist's clinic and burns it completely to hide his data. The next day, Jeffrey is driving his car on his way to the airport and suddenly receives a call from Lee. At first, Jeffrey doesn't want to answer, but his feelings overcome him and he parks the car to answer the call. At that moment, Lee asks him to attend Christmas dinner with them. Here, Jeffrey's tears fall because he is unable to leave Lee and go. At the same time, this is the last chance to escape from the country. In the end, Jeffrey makes his decision and backs away from the idea of escaping and goes to Lee's house, having taken gifts for the girls with him. But suddenly, the police surround the place and arrest him. At that time, Lee is in the police car, breaking down because she feels guilty toward Jeffrey because she is the one who reported him. Afterwards, Jeffrey is sentenced to an additional 40 years. Inside the cell, he puts a picture of Lee's family next to the picture of his old family. All the time, Jeffrey keeps thinking about all the harm he caused to those around him and realizes that those close to him didn't need money or expensive gifts, but they needed his presence beside them. Over time, Jeffrey begins telling his story to his fellow inmates in prison. One of them asks him if he intends to escape again, and Jeffrey tells him that he doesn't think about that at all because he has finally become convinced that he must bear the consequences of his actions. After a period, Lee goes to visit Jeffrey and apologizes to him for reporting him, but he tells her that he is the one who should apologize to her because he deceived her. Afterwards, the two hug each other and cry. In the end, we learn that Jeffrey tried to escape from prison twice in 2009 and 2017, and that he is currently eligible for parole in 2036. We see clips from news reports in 2004 regarding his case, in addition to an interview conducted with the real Lee, and the movie ends. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video, and you can suggest any series or movies for us to summarize in the comments.